Thank you, Lee. And would you please welcome our final keynote presentation of the day? Would you please welcome back Mr. Jesse Schell.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. It's Games for Change, the 10th Games for Change. Exciting. Yeah. So for the 10th Games for Change, I brought some new material. So this talk is kind of in beta. If you don't know what beta means, that's is a more detailed question of how do games best fit into education? Because this isn't well answered. There are many ways that people are trying to get games to fit. Sometimes in the classroom, sometimes at home, sometimes part of a curriculum, sometimes outside the curriculum, sometimes between parents and students, sometimes as part of adult education. And then when you look at that, there are all these different business models. And it's a little bit daunting, quite frankly, because you can't just say, okay, here's education, here's games, how do I fit them in there? Because everything is changing. The standards of what constitutes good education are changing. The technologies on which we ship games are changing radically. The delivery systems for how the bits get from point A to point B are changing. The economic models of how people pay for games are changing. The students themselves and what they like and don't like is changing. Parents are changing. The whole world is changing, and what constitutes relevant education in the world is changing. All these things are constantly moving and in flux, and it really can be scary and daunting to figure out how your little game can survive out there and actually make a difference to somebody. Now, some people say, well, you don't have to figure all that out. It's going to take care of itself because we've got this new renaissance going on. You know, we've got this digital renaissance, and everything's just going to get better because it always gets better. Well, and if you believe that, it pays to look back at the old Renaissance, right? You know, we had this 300-year period where suddenly there was this massive flowering of creativity and science and art, and a great deal of it can be pinned on one man, Johannes Gutenberg. You know, 1435, he shows up with like, hey, I can make a lot of books this way. And suddenly everyone has access to knowledge and learnings that they never would have been able to have just 50 or 100 years before. And this fueled the Renaissance to such a great extent. And so now people say, well, yeah, that's the internet. We have this massive digital renaissance. And it's true. We see people connecting with each other, using the internet, and being able to learn things so fast. And the fact that we can now distribute games through the internet and not have to do it through retail stores is tremendous. But does that mean that everything just takes care of itself? I don't think it does. One of the things that I often a mental framework I like to use a lot is the notion that it's not enough just to understand the technology. The technology is important and the technology is essential, and the technology is what's making so much of what we're talking about at this conference possible. But there are many things that are possible with technology that simply will not happen because technology is used by humans. The phrase I like is that technology plus psychology equals destiny. In other words, only by understanding how the human mind wants to interact and mesh with the technology can you understand what's going to happen. And in fact, if you do have perfect understanding of the technology and perfect understanding of the human mind, you can figure out exactly what's going to happen and exactly how people are going to use these things and exactly what they will and won't pay for and what will and won't be useful to them. But all too often, people only look at one side of the coin or the other. And all too often, we fail to look deeply enough at the psychology side of it because it is the darker and murkier side of it. So today I want to look a lot at the psychology of education. And one of the things I've noticed looking at the psychology of education is I've found it useful to break learners into two types. That I find that there are sort of two types of learners, two types of learning. And I break them out this way. One of them are the sheep, and the sheep do what they're told, right? Sit in that chair, listen to this lesson, do these 12 math problems, Yes, 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 the sheep will sit and do it, and that's sheep-based education. Then there are the goats. The goats don't want to sit there. They don't want to do what they're told. They don't care about what they want to know. Why am I doing these 12 math problems? Why am I sitting in this chair? Can I do this outside? They have all these questions, right? The goats do what they want. And that sounds bad from an education point of view, except that the goats are often incredibly passionate about what they learn. They learn things because they want to learn them, and they truly own their education. And this has always been true. This is not a new concept or a new notion, but it's become very, very important, because part of this whole digital revolution is we now have the ability to self-educate in ways we never had before. In the ancient times of education, education mostly happened through apprenticeship. You know, you want to learn to make shoes, you hang out with a shoemaker, he shows you to make shoes. How do I know this education is relevant? Duh! He's making shoes. It's right there. Right? You know it's working because you're doing it with him right there. And it's obviously relevant. There's no question about it. But once the industrial age showed up, education changed a bit. It took this kind of new form where it was trying to be more general. It was trying to create education that was multi-purpose, that could be used for potentially many different careers, which is a tough thing to do, because how do you really know what is and isn't going to be useful? And of course, at the time, so many of the careers were kind of factory-oriented. Farm work, factory work, clerk work. It's all very rote and repetitive. In other words, it's very good sheep work. And it would make sense to make an educational system that trains you to be a good sheep when most of the work out there is good work for sheep. That makes total sense. And you want to smack down the goats, and you want to promote the sheep, and that's how the education system would be. Because that's what the work was, right? I mean, the goats are not going to fare well in this environment. Goats are going to get fired. Sheep are going to get a lot of wool made there, yes. But now there's a lot of side effects when you have a society of sheep, right? Part of it is it means you have a society easily manipulated by advertising. Interestingly, for the big companies, this is really great, right? And it's sort of scary to think about, gee, what do the big industries really want out of the educational system? Do they want a bunch of people who can kind of do their own thing? No, they don't. They don't. If you're a big company, you want as many sheep as possible, so they'll do what you say. When you put that out on the Super Bowl, you want them all to go and do it, right? And you want them to be willing to accept what's provided. You want them to be happy with what's in the store and not begging for something else that you don't have. You want them to just take it and accept it. And you know what else you don't want? You don't want a bunch of entrepreneurs coming out of the schools. It's not good for you. It's competition for you. You don't want to teach the kids how to be business people and how to be entrepreneurs. It's not in your best interest. And it's fascinating to me today that even still today, the amount of education about how to run your own business or what a business even means in public education, it's almost absent. And it makes me wonder why. And maybe it's just tradition, maybe there's no time for it, but maybe there's something else. But the world is changing. I remember when I was, in high school back in the 80s, and I wanted to learn electronics. That wasn't part of our curriculum. And I just decided, hey, I'm just going to learn it on my own. And I go to the library, and there's books, but man, I don't understand them. They're thick and they're weird. I don't know anybody who knows this stuff. Months and months I spent bugging people and asking things, really frustrating, trying to understand it. But today, some kid who wants to learn about electronics, what does he have to do? He doesn't have to do anything, right? He just goes on the internet. Bam! Here's 100 videos of how to make your own robot. It's the coolest thing ever. You can learn things so crazy fast. It is like this incredible world for the goats. Oh my God, it's so wonderful because anything that catches their mind, they can just go for. Now, as an example of one of the things that becomes possible, part of what's so great about the internet is you can not only just learn things, but you work with other people and you make things together, and that's part of the magic of it. One of the things we've done at Schell Games, we created this thing called Game Sprout, which is a community where people come together who might know, you might got a great game idea, you bring it there and you work with other people and you collaboratively build the games together, and we help too, kind of in an apprenticeship model. And we're based on these ideas that, first, anybody can design a great game. It's possible. Secondly, all of us working together are better designers than any of us alone. And then third, the more we all share, the smarter we all become. And, you know, it's all about goats helping goats, right? This is not, sheep are going to be confused in these kind of communities, but communities like this are springing up everywhere. So here we have this goat paradise. The internet is, man, it's amazing. Anything you want to learn. You want to learn, you know, about how to make your own Australian surfboard? Like, yes, you can just go and learn it, and it's all there. It's wonderful. What if you're not? What if you're a sheep? It's a different kind of situation. So it's really good news for the goats, definitely. But let's talk a little bit more about the goats and what makes the goats work. The goats are fueled by curiosity. That is what makes them go, right? And it pays for us to understand curiosity, because for the people who are really going to take advantage of this and make the most of it are going to be the people who are deeply curious and pursue their own curiosity. And let's talk about how curiosity happens, right? It happens when you have this one insight, one day, one time. All of a sudden you see something and this question forms in your mind, like, what is that? And you want to chase it down. And you chase it down, right? And so when that comes through, there's choices, right? Some people, they see some new thing that's like, wait, this isn't how I thought the world worked, and they become scared. This is the sheep reaction. Like, I've never seen this before, I don't like it, I'm very uncomfortable about this. Other people are apathetic, yeah, I don't know, whatever, I don't care, right? But not the goats. The goats are like, what is that? I've never seen that before. I want to check that out. What is that? And when you have that curiosity, it leads to something. So curiosity, when you pursue it a little bit, it leads to insight. You're like, what is that? Oh my God, the world works different than I thought. I didn't know it worked that way. And you have this insight. And the insight, nature has a special reward for people who have an insight about how the world works. And that reward is called wonder. You have that feeling where you're like, oh my God, it's full of stars. I had no idea. I had no idea that the world works this way. And it becomes addictive, because once you start to have that feeling of wonder, there's a reason we call it wonder, because it makes you wonder. It leads to more curiosity, right? As Dorothy Parker said, the cure for boredom is curiosity. There is no cure for curiosity, because the loop keeps going once it gets started. And so sure, that's fine for curious people, but it's a question of what does it take to become a curious person? So consider Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize winning physicist, and without a doubt, one of the great goats of the 20th century. It's a weird coincidence. Anyway, so Richard Feynman tells this story about how he became interested in physics. He explains that he was 6 years old and he had a wagon, and he was pulling a wagon and playing with the wagon, and the wagon had a ball in it. And he noticed, 6-year-old Richard Feynman, that when he would pull the wagon and stop, the ball would not stop. The ball instead, which had been stationary in the back of the wagon, when he stopped, would begin to roll spontaneously across the wagon. And he thought that that was absolutely fascinating. He wondered, like, how is that possible? And he did it several times, and he watched and he thought about it. And he went and asked his uncle, and he said, I don't understand this. Why is this happening? Now, most adults would have done the dumb thing, the sheep thing. Most adults would have said, ah, that's inertia, which tells you precisely nothing. All it does is put a name on something you already knew about, right? Instead, his uncle was brave enough and bold enough to tell young Richard the truth. And the truth to the answer to the question, why does the ball keep rolling when I stop pulling the wagon, was, nobody knows. Because we don't know. We know that it happens. But why exactly is the universe that way? Nobody knows. And at that moment, 6-year-old Richard Feynman found himself with his little wagon and his little ball staring into the infinite. And he felt that sense of wonder. And he talks about this as a pivotal moment in his life. Now this leads to an important question. did this moment make a difference because he was already a curious goat, and it just kind of made him more of a curious goat, and it enlivened that part of him? Or did this moment inspire him to become curious? Because it's a thing, curiosity is not well studied, and we don't actually know whether it is possible to make people become more curious individuals. It's something we simply don't know. People have intuitions, oh, you're either born curious or you're not. Or other people have intuitions that if you do it the right way, you can inspire people, but we don't know. We really don't know. Jonathan Locke talks about this. Back in 1692, he talks about educational games. He talks about how important it is for kids to have educational games, and he's no dope about it. He says, hey, you can't just give it to them. It's going to seem fake and phony to them. What you have to do is you have to kind of let them see it, make them think it's a more grown-up thing, a more adult thing, and then when you're done with it, you put it on a high shelf where they can't reach it, so that they wonder, what is that? And how can I find out about it? When they ask, you say, no. That's for older kids. That's for kids who are serious about learning to read. This letter game is not for everybody. He understood intuitively that by inspiring curiosity, you were going to get students to own their own education. And I often think of something Randy Pausch, I heard Randy Pausch say once, when we were at the ETC, we had some visiting guests from Japan. And one of the Japanese scientists said, I look at our Japanese students and I look at the American students and I see a real difference. I can't believe the creativity in the American students. Our students don't always seem to be creative like that. I want to know what it is you're doing here in America that makes your students more creative than mine. And Randy thought about it, and he said, it's not that American schools do anything special to teach creativity. It's just that they're less efficient at stamping it out. And I think this might be true, because we've all seen the creativity of kindergartners, and you compare that to the creativity of 10th graders, and something happened. And could it be a sheep-based education system that did a lot of stamping it out? So, what am I saying here? Am I saying that sheep are evil and goats are good? That maybe Jesus had it backwards in Matthew 25, right? Is that what I'm saying? No, I'm not saying that, because while there's a lot of benefits to being a goat, man, there's a bunch of huge benefits to being a sheep as well. If you can't sit still and pay attention and do those 12 math exercises like you're told, you're going to have a hard time with the long division, right? There are real benefits to learning to be able to discipline yourself and to follow and do what you're told at the right time in the right place. And it seems that there's something important about having this balance in education. So I guess what I'm saying is that right now, the education system's a bit out of balance. It's very, very sheep-oriented and not very, very goat-oriented. And we're moving into a future where who's going to succeed? The people with the most standardized education? Are those the people who succeed? No, it's the people who are super specialized, who become the best in the world about the nerdy thing that they care about. They're the ones who succeed in the 21st century. And our education system isn't well set up for that. And bringing games to the table is really important, because the games fit really well towards self-education. They fit really well with pursuing things at your own pace, at your own rate, the way that you want to pursue them. So, does this mean that the new people are talking about educational revolution? Everything's breaking up. It's going to be online courses. You're not going to have real teachers anymore. You'll specify your own education. It'll be like goat madness. All this sheep stuff's going to go away. It's just going to be gone. 5 years from now, it'll all be gone. You'll have a completely specialized education where you'll define it yourself and you'll own it yourself. If that's true, man, that's great for us, because we're all anyone in this room is creating specialized educational stuff you'll be able to sell directly to the people who care. But I don't think that's true. I don't think that accepts important aspects of human psychology. I think that, in fact, it kind of flies in the face of them. So I think there are 3 reasons why the change in the educational system is not going to be so simple that way. First one is schools are slow to change, right? They are big entities that it's expensive and risky for them to make changes, and they generally don't make changes unless A, they're sure it's going to save money, or B, they find themselves really crashing on the rocks. Once they've really crashed on the rocks, they say, let's make some changes. And that can take a long time. Secondly, it is really useful. All these sheep skills is really useful. And we can't just throw them out. It's very important. There's a lot of stuff there that has to be learned. But the third one, the most important one that people don't talk about very much, is a game. There's a game that anyone who goes to school plays. It's this game. We call it the sheepskin game. How about that? What a coincidence. People care about the sheepskin. They often care about it much more than the actual education. They care about it so much. Think about the money that people spend on education. Who here has played the sheepskin game? Anybody here? Anybody here? It's a fascinating game, right? It's free to play, right? You know, the first 13 levels are free, K through 12, right? Yeah. You know, until you find you're kind of hooked, and then they're like, well, there's these really special ones, but they cost a lot more, right? Who here made it to level 16? Got to level 16? Yeah, all right, good job, good job, guys. And anybody here level 18? I got to level 18. I was pretty happy. Anybody level 20? Right, a few of them call them doctors, right? And then there's people like level 24. I don't know what to call them, but they have a problem. That's a game addiction problem. So the thing we know is that, man, people care about this game. They care a lot. And it seems sort of silly to do all that work and spend all that money for a piece of paper. Couldn't I learn that stuff on my own? I'm a goat. I'm just going to go out there and learn it on my own. Well, the goats I know have done that. You know, I know plenty of goats have gone and made their way in the world without getting the sheepskin, and they've done great for themselves. Ironically, they are often sheepish about it, right? There's something weird about it. And the reason is, it's not just a piece of paper. What the diploma represents is social proof. And as human beings, as social beings, we care about social proof. We care about the fact that the elders of the tribe said, yes, we accept you. How do I know I'm a man? Because the elders gave me this mark. That's how I know. If the elders didn't give me this mark, how would I know that I was a man? And this is important. And people who say, oh, this is all going to go away, higher education is going to be replaced by self-education, I think they are missing an important part of the human mindset. So what does that mean for us as developers, right? Because it certainly means that it changes the way you think about what people will pay for education. Because what do people pay for a sheepskin? Jesus, I know people who paid $100,000. I know people who have taken $60,000, $80,000 in loans to win this game and to get that sheepskin. Anybody pay you that much for your goatskin game that you made? Like, hey, the game said you won, right? You make your little educational game and, you know, go tell the parents, right? Yeah, because like there's my question. Who wants your goatwear, right? I'm making goatwear. Well, does it help me get the sheepskin? Well, no, it's kind of on the side. You kind of pursue it at your own pace. It's self-education. And you say, parents, what do you think of this goatwear? Well, how much is it? You're like, well, you know, it's like $50. $50? Look, I have to save up $125,000 to send my kid to get the sheepskin. I can't spend $50 on your goatwear thing. Oh, it's only $5? Well, you know, I don't really like to pay for apps. Is there a free version, right? The parents are not very excited about buying goatwear. Now you might say, I've seen people spend a lot of money in that preschool software. And that's not part of a diploma, really. It isn't. You know that it is. You know that it's the parents, what the parents are interested in, prepping them for school so they can accelerate them up through the sheepskin. So preschool software is really sheepwear. It is not really goatwear. So, all right, what about the kids? The kids all excited about, yeah, I'm going to learn this learning game on my own time, and the kid's been learning all day. He's like, man, I'm going to knock off and play some Angry Birds and cut the rope. And no, I don't want to have your game that teaches me French. I don't want to pursue that. Thank you. How about the administrators? They're like, does it meet the Common Core? Does it help me get my test scores up? You're like, no, it fulfills the gaps that are in your system. Oh, they don't want to hear about that. So, damn, who am I going to sell my software to? Who's going to buy it? The parents don't want to pay for it. The kids don't want to pay for it. The administrators don't want to pay for it. But geez, I got this great game. It's a geography game. It'll make you better at geography, or it'll teach you advanced science, or make you better at art, or there's somebody we forgot. It's somebody we always forget. Somebody we always take for granted. The teachers. The teachers want your goatware. At least the good teachers do, because the good teachers know. The good teachers know that they have to strike the balance. They know that the sheep and the goats need to be in balance. A good teacher gets you to discipline yourself, but also finds that unique thing in you that only you can chase down and helps you find it. Right? That's what good teachers do. And the teachers know that the school's bad at supporting the goat side of things. So the good teachers know, man, if I can find tools that'll help the kids get what's important to them, they're gonna support your tools. They're gonna pay for them. They're gonna find ways to ask for the money and get grants, and they're gonna spread the word. Do you think that teachers don't know about social networks? Do you think they don't talk to each other? Very, very soon, I'm sure we're going to have Yelp for teachers and Yelp for goatware. And the teachers are all going to be talking to each other about what's quality and what's garbage so that they can take it in. Because if you can deliver to the teacher something that really makes a difference for them and lets them fill the gaps that they know are there, they're going to embrace it. They're going to embrace it, they're going to praise it, they're going to spread the word, and they're going to be loyal to whatever you make next. So I'd like you to think for a minute about that one teacher in your life that made a real difference for you. Just think about that teacher. And now I want you to think not about creating software for kids or for parents or for administrations. I want you to think about what tool could you make for that teacher that would have made their job easier, that would have been able to get them to carry out their mission and to make a difference like they made for you for more people than they could have? And the last thing I want you to do is to go out and make that tool. Thanks. We have time for one or two questions if anybody's so inclined. Yeah.
I want to ask a question about the Common Core and the next generation science standards.
Yep.
It's certainly the case that you could design sheepware for aspects of them, but it strikes me that there's evidence-based thinking embedded in it, systems thinking, design thinking, that it holds out some things that could be goatware. You've been doing a lot of designing for Amplify and for the education space. I wonder if you could talk about whether you see the potential for goatware in the new standards.
Yeah, so the question in terms of the new science standards and how much of it needs to be sheepware and how much of it needs to be goatware. One of the things that fascinates me about science and science thinking is how, scientists have to be goats. That is kind of their job, right? Because people say, oh, we want to try and teach you scientific thinking. We'll teach you the scientific method. That's not how science works. What scientific thinking really is confidence that I can answer this question myself. I don't need to look in a book. I don't need to have a teacher tell me. I can do experiments and find it out myself. So I feel pretty certain that any successful, really successful scientific software is going to be some balance between the things that hit the minimum standards and the things that carry outside. And it's fascinating to me that if you look at the good science teachers, so many people can remember that crazy science teacher they had that really inspired them with their crazy stuff. So the thing that you've got in terms of looking at the science teachers, you have a community that is ready to embrace that kind of software. Okay, we're about out of time. So again, thank you very much.